Hello, everyone. Welcome back to UB Podcast. We are here tonight. I'm excited. We got through another week. Oh gosh, we got through another week, y'all. To me, it seemed like this was the longest week ever. I'm not sure if it's because I'm not cooking no collard greens, tomatoes, beans, and I ain't doing all that. My diet don't require me to cook. So happy holidays, everybody. I want y'all to enjoy your holidays. I ain't coming here to be no little Debbie Downer or nothing like that. But I'm excited tonight. I'm excited because we got special guests. We talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is mental wellness. I love talking about that. I do care about the wellness of our minds, our bodies, and our souls. I do. And I hope that you all do as well. Not only that, the holidays are coming and we are all excited. So a little bit before I jump right in there, let me tell you about myself. I am your host, Queen Unique, for tonight. Welcome to UB Podcast. I want you to bring a friend, tap on in, subscribe, do all of that stuff. Just follow us, talk back, and let's heal together. That's one of our missions that we do. We believe in healing together in the community, family, and friends. And just using all of our sources that we have. I look at healing as a holistic and an individual kind of thing. It's not a one size fit all, but it is a size in there to fit all of us. So with that being said, our mission here, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're located out here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And our mission is to provide awareness and advocacy for victims and survivors of domestic violence, human trafficking, and sexual assault. We have a particular focus on at-risk youth. And so a little bit about the holidays. Holidays are heavy for us in our organization. And really globally, if you do this kind of work, victims and survivors, it's a tough time for them to get through. Trying to figure out what's next. Am I good enough? Who loved me? Holidays is all about love and acceptance, and everybody's making a big deal over each other. But somewhere in that room, somebody is suffering in silence, you guys. It's important that we provide these spaces and places where we can talk about that and let people know, first and foremost, you are not alone. It's been times myself before I, started and accepted this healing journey where depression met me at the door every holiday. Every holiday I was sad, I was depressed, I was thinking it's not going to get better. And then even before the holidays, I dreaded winter time coming. I had the winter blues, I had seasonal depression, and I tried a little bit of everything. I tried taking advice from people, I tried medications, I tried a lot of things because I wanted to heal, I wanted to feel better, and I wanted to live life at its fullest capacity. So I'm not going to talk more about that tonight because y'all know I will talk your head off. But I'm excited because we got some guests. I'm not on here by myself, y'all. I ain't on here by myself, so you're not going to only have to deal with me by myself. We have the Kewins on, and they're going to come to us tonight. And they're going to talk to us a little bit about what they do in the community out here in Charlotte. I'm always looking for a resource. I know me and my family, that's one thing that we needed on our healing journey when I was going through life. My daughter is a survivor of human trafficking. We have a background of domestic violence as well in our family with friends and everything like that. So, and also sexual assault. So we like to look for resources because I have a want to live like we should live no matter what we're going through. So, yeah, I'm going to do us a jest and I'm going to bring our guests on here. And we're going to get right on into it. All right. So let me bring them on. Y'all know that I am not a tech girl, but I am learning how to do this thing. All right. Let's see. So we got them. Look, we here. I did it. Welcome, you guys. Thank you so much for taking your time out and coming on with us tonight. I hope we have like a little worship service. We're gonna behave because Miss Susan here, Mr. Chuck, when we get in class, when we go in class, it's back to joke time, okay? But we're gonna behave tonight because we have the queen in the building and we want to be on our best behavior. So
I don't know about that.
Well, I have to
go.
look, Miss Susan, it be Chuck. It don't be me. It
be Chuck. All right.
It'll be me.
Okay, so welcome you guys to the podcast. We've been trying to do this thing for a while. I'm finally the day have arrived finally. So, and we are right here for Thanksgiving. So I am thankful to have you all come and grace Unique Blessings family and give us some information and education tonight and just share your presence. So for the audience, I don't know who want to go first, you Miss Susan or you Mr. Chuck. Just tell us about who is Susan and who is Chuck.
Well,
Go first.
I get to go first. Okay. Well, we used to label our identity by what we would do or what our position in life is, and we only really recently learned as being a valuable created child of God, and we all have that same value. There's nobody above or below. It's all on the same level. And so we started understanding our identity first as that, as a created being, as someone that we're not an accident, we're not random, that we have great value. And we learned that we are so loved, and to be honest with you, we're still in the fundamental stages of that, learning that. So we're learning that we have to say, it's always our own voice and all the other voices out there telling you, you're worthless, you're no good, you're insignificant, you failed, you're a failure. Not that you failed, but I spent most of my life with that mindset. I've screwed up, I failed, God hates me. I've gone through that for, so long, and being very deeply religious situations, or most of our life, I guess. And I say religious, I don't mean just we went to church. I mean very strong religious, lots of rules. What do you call it? A lot of expectations, and I did that for many years. And that, sadly enough, it contributed in a large way to our kids. Well, we have 5 kids, 4 now living. We have one that passed away 2 years ago, and we'll be discussing that later. But that's who we've done it with. We live in Fort, as far as the details, we live in Fort Mill. We're just over the border from Charlotte, but we're part of Raise You Up Ministries, which is our nonprofit. It's all volunteer work. That's not what we do for a living, but we are dedicated to helping reduce chronic homelessness in Charlotte, and we've been doing that for 10 years. And we meet twice a month out in the streets of Charlotte with a mobile RV unit where we serve them with food, clothing, a clothing boutique, personal shopping, haircuts if we have a barber available, all home cooked meals, or restaurant chef cooked meals. And that's our passion. It's one of the things when we do our particular, for-profit business, so we can be able to do our nonprofits, put more time into it, and connect with wonderful people like yourselves and all the other ministers out. So I'm really humbled and proud to be on here at the same time. Your turn.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. I like it. I definitely like it. And I want to contribute there. I'm a cosmetologist, so I can pitch in there too. But I'll let you keep going.
You.
That's right. The ladies would love you.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
We've been doing this for 10 years now, right?
About, yeah.
And we've seen it grow from just each of us having a backpack with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and water bottles. That was it. And walking up and down the streets. And if we saw someone that, appeared to be homeless, we would offer them a sandwich and a water bottle. And most of the time, they might take the sandwich or the water bottle, but they didn't want to talk. They didn't want to pray. They didn't want to do that until we consistently showed up. And that was so important, just being consistent over the years, that they opened up to us and we were able to work with them, find them jobs. That's the ultimate goal that we have, is to get them out of homelessness. That's our ultimate goal. But I love what you're doing and the possibility of connecting, because I know that the folks that we're dealing with, especially the women, why are they out living on the streets? They're victims of domestic violence.
Yes.
I know once or twice I've ran across people that were victims of human trafficking. And so, to be able to connect with other sources like what your organization. Thank you.
Yes.
We're just what your organization is doing. I think that's really, really tremendously important. And it has been quite a challenge since losing our son to continue on. I know that you wanted to get into discussing that, but as far as being able to contribute has really helped. That's one thing that has, as far as, just having that. When we're out on the street, we're out there every other Saturday, the second and the fourth Saturday. And I always feel like I come away with more than what I gave. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because these folks are so thankful and very grateful, and they're just really touched by just getting a clean pair of clothes and a meal, and that we're there. So I feel like I come away with more than I gave, which really helps as far as the healing process. I think being able to give and having a heart of gratitude for what you do have. I mean, if you're working with the homeless, and your situation is, it's tragic, victims of domestic violence, and human trafficking, because that's a long term healing that just doesn't
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I am very grateful when I do go out that we're not in that position. That we have an abundance of things. And yes, it's tragic that we lost our son, and that's a long journey. We
Mm-hmm.
actually feel like this year, first year, we kind of felt like we were just numb to the whole thing. December 17th will be 2 years, and now we feel like we're beginning to actually experience the emotions,
Mm-hmm.
that go along with it. But yeah, so that's what we are. That's where we are now on our journey.
Well, thank you for your service and just still being able to move while you are going through your own personal grief of losing a child. Um, my condolences and my prayers to your family, first of all, before we even go into that. I'm always, last week we had a show. I'm not sure if you guys seen it, but we had a mom on last week and she lost a baby girl, tragically. And I'm always, it's an honor to sit next to someone to see that, first of all, prayer does work. Even if it's not you praying, somebody is definitely praying for you to be able to wake up and still breathe and still move on and still carry your loved one and spirit, even in your time of grief. I know grief sometimes it have sometimes it make us angry, and sometimes we shut down. We don't want to talk to anyone. And Chuck, I think you kind of like geared towards this a little bit. You feel like you are a disappointment to life. Like, why did I come here? If I could have did this, or if we just would have said that. And I'm only going off of like a temporary feeling of when my daughter, I was told that she wasn't with us anymore, but fortunately she was. And so just for a moment, I felt empty, like why we even here, right? And for me, my healing was going out helping people.
Yeah.
I know sometimes you're scrutinized though when you do that. Sometimes, so I admire that you two have each other and you can serve as support for one another, because grief can come and it can destroy everything. It can destroy marriages. It change you. It cause separation, anxiety, depression, trust issues, so many things. And I'm saying that because we all lost someone in life, and I'm learning on this healing journey that we all grieve differently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We all grieve differently, and we all need different things when and support when it comes to that. And the same thing as it relates to like victims of trauma and violence. Even the homeless
Mhm.
population, like how my two all navigate and move through that. And I'm sure it's triggers out there when you're doing your work, to kind of pull you back to that place, to kind of make you question yourself or say, should I go any further? Or why did we even come this far, and why? So how do you still move through that with only 2 years losing a child? In my opinion, that's like 2 days. It's just like 2 days. I just don't feel like, I know for me, I had something happen. It took me 20 years to get to that point of acceptance, saying, okay, I accept this. This is what it is. And I was good with still, dressing up to smile and just, existing, but not really being there. Spiritually, just so disconnected in a lot of ways. So my question is, like I said, how do you even keep on moving through this kind of work with this much going on? You have the pandemic. You have 1 minute you can do this, 1 minute you can't. Stay away, get closer. So what are some things that you all do to keep on going and still have your good mindset while you're doing it?
Well, we probably need like 10 or 20 podcasts. And that's not.
Hey, we can always come back and do more.
Yeah. So, but this isn't to brag at all, because it's not like we're doing so many things, but it's all little baby steps. Mm-hmm. And it's all, the learning process. Like she said, the first year it was December 17th, 2020. So, that first year, you're numb for the first month, still processing everything. And it was hard because that was more or less the end of the first year of the pandemic. So he lived in Kentucky at the time, and he worked at a racetrack. And so we got word of it through his girlfriend, and he didn't show up for work. He lived in a trailer. And so here we are 6-8 hours away, trying to rely on information. And we didn't even know if he was reliable. Was it really him? And so you're trying to get all this information from more or less a total stranger. We'd never met this girl. So, your mind is already racing to 1,000 different things. Was it really him? So I was in denial, but you have to really prove things to me for me to accept it. So that was like 2-3 hours waiting for we could finally talk to the coroner and verify it through. And, there was three awful days during that time. And that was the first one when it got confirmed. The second day was we had him cremated. So we had to have the remains shipped to a crematorium. So we did that. And the gentleman at the crematorium was just amazing. He was excellent. So compassionate and professional. I couldn't have asked for a better experience under the worst of circumstances. So he did an amazing job. So, but we had to identify. If we'd have went there, we couldn't have gotten into the crematorium to identify him. So he had to take a screenshot. He had to take a photo of him and send it to us in a text. Imagine getting your picture of your dead son in a text. Yeah. And so that was like, and he was, well, I won't go into details. I'm just saying I cannot get rid of that picture on my phone. I can't look at it, but I cannot get rid of the picture on my phone. I can't. So that was the second worst day. The third worst day was when we had to actually pick up his ashes at the post office. And I think, I forget, I think a date it was December, between Christmas and New Year's, I believe. So, happy holidays. I just remember the post office. We were there. We got the slip, handed it to the lady. And I said, we're expecting so-and-so. And she looks at it, and then it registers with her. And she just, we're standing there in tears. And it's, there's like 10 people in line, and they're standing by. And she just hands us the box and then reaches out and just holds on to Susan's hands for as long as she needed. And then we walked out. The support system we had behind all this was our pastor and his wife from a little church here in Fort Mill. They lost their daughter 4 years ago through completely different type of circumstances, but through a lifelong battle of
heart issues.
Yeah, congenital heart issues. And so they knew the journey enough to know, this is what you expect. We're here for you guys. And so we really bounced a lot of things off of them. And then another couple of good friends of ours who were part of our ministry for a while, Jacob and LaShawn Jenkins, they have a tremendous heart and spirit from God, and they lost their son 3 years ago. So each year we've always kind of like have this, we see each other, we talk a little bit here and there and connect. So we've sort of got support that's one way we've done it. And the first year we were still working full time with a company that, we manage, a property manager where we live now, but we've since retired from that. Going to work was a blessing and a curse. It took your mind off it to a certain degree, but you sort of just you sleepwalk through it.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's just the way we were pretty much numb. And so this last year, she said, so now we've been starting our business from home. Wonderful. We've got a really good severance package from our company. Huge blessing from God. But this year's been more, like she said, it's like the numbness wore off. And so it's been like that. Just, you mentioned the triggers and you mentioned acceptance. That stuff we're just finding out how that works. So this, the smallest thing will trigger. And I realized I've had a lot of mental health issues that without getting into it, I'm a suicide survivor from 1984, from a really, really bad decision in my life at that time. And so please, I'm not looking for any sympathy because it was a really, really dumb thing that led up to that very, very poor choice on purpose. So that affected our family life, our kids' life. So what's really been difficult to grieve over my son's loss, not just because he had addiction issues. So the quick story of that is we actually had to have him leave our home when he was about 18 years old. It was very detrimental to the house. I couldn't keep him there. I wasn't necessarily connected with his addictions a little bit, but so it was just destroying our home. So, there was a lot of victimized people in my home I had to care for that. I didn't do very well with that either. So he felt rejection. He felt all these things. And we since reconciled and got things straight over the years, but he never really did fight through all those addictions. And then he moves to Tennessee. He gets electrocuted by the high tension electrical lines on a job, the first day of the job. So his body literally got not just almost died. He was dying 40 foot up in a tree. And it literally rewired his brain. And because they didn't really know that much, this was back in like 8-10 years ago.
Well, they said more electricity passed through him than if he would have been in an electric chair.
Yeah, so he was literally dying.
Yeah, the news came the next day at the hospital and asked him, and he's like, "Why are you here?" He said, "Because no one has survived.
No one lives through this." So the pain and the suffering that he went through that ruined his marriage. He has a son. Really ruined his marriage because his addiction issues became not just mild; they become catastrophic. So they got worse, and he didn't know how to deal with it. He didn't know how to, and so eventually it was accidental drug overdose that took his life, and fentanyl. And so whether he knew it was in the product that he was taking or not, I don't know. But that's the story. So that really kind of surprised because we knew he had alcohol addiction. And we were up and down with him. And finally he went into a rehab thing, but not long enough. So he had done that several times. And so you do it like every day. It's not like, it wasn't a total surprise to us that he passed, but it shocks and it kills your heart. It's still a shock regardless, but it wasn't as if everything was great and all of a sudden it hit. So it wasn't a sudden thing necessarily, but so for me, there's been 100 things that I've had to try to do and for that first probably 2 weeks to 2 months, I just had this rule of 3. I just thought my goal was 3 things for the day. And so if anybody out there listening, you got to have something you can do no matter how simple and baby steps they are, because what it does in your mind, how it tricks your mind or actually changes your mind and your brain is I just said 3 things. So for me, one was get up in the morning before noon, do a warm up or stretching or workout, and have breakfast. If I did that before noon, I felt like my day was, and seriously, there were some days I didn't even make it. I didn't even get out of bed till 1 o'clock.
Right.
It's just the heaviness. So in this past year, this littlest things could trigger it. So I've gotten some counseling this year because I won't say I was suicidal, but I got to the point where we were very rejected by our daughter. And I understand why. Things in the past. She's believing some things that are lies, and it's unfortunate, but she's kind of estranged herself from me. But, we still reach out to her. We still love her. So we've had that kind of tipped the scale for me, to be honest with you. Excuse me. I just couldn't take it anymore. I just didn't want to be here. And so that was back in the spring. And the littlest things that normally wouldn't be an issue would stress me out. And so I'm a classic overthinker, a little bit ADHD, CPTSD for my son, kind of OCD, and mildly depressed. So then, and I was kind of that way before my son died. Then you throw your son. Yeah. So there's been, and December, I know I'm yakking out and on, but I mean, December's tough.
No, you're okay.
No, December's tough for this young woman because it's a real high and low, because we were married on Christmas Day. We'll be celebrating 41 years.
41?
41, yep. I know.
We're going to have to talk about how you get that far, but go ahead.
She doesn't even look 41. It's not even fair.
She only look about 45 or something like that. Like, it was just an arranged marriage from the womb.
So,
wow.
Yeah, so 41 years we'll be celebrating. And my birthday is on the 27th. So we've got Christmas, we got my birthday, we got our anniversary. So it's typically wonderful. But in the mid to late 90s, she suffered 3 stillborns 3 years in a row. So December,
Yeah.
was such a mix. And of course, my son's death on the
3 years in a
17th.
row in December.
Almost the
Yeah.
same week each year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So December is it's weird. It's a up and down. So when you talk about people with depression, we get it. Just for whatever
Right.
happened, whatever triggers that thing, in the holidays, the good and bad, you have memories of bad things, you have memories of good things, and that can just trigger a flood of emotions. So
Yes.
that's kind of where we are emotionally. But she's been my rock, and that's probably where my shame and guilt come in. But I know society teaches the man's supposed to be this, that, and the other thing. I think we're kind of erasing a lot of those things, while at the same time understanding that okay, I'm not better than her, she's not better than me. I don't know about the whole role
Right.
thing. We're just glad to have each other, support each other.
Yeah.
So she's really
Which
helped.
is very, very important.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
Yeah.
it's been huge.
And just, the odd part is that I remember telling someone a friend of mine, that I felt like our marriage is better than it's ever been. And we've always had a good marriage. But going through this and realizing, like what you said at the beginning, everyone goes through their grief.
Yeah.
And I think differently, I think part of what the blessing was for us is that we understood that, and we respected that in each other. And instead of it tearing us apart and me not being able to understand how come he can't watch a Netflix show without crying, and or whatever. And the same thing with me, that I get all frustrated and bothered about something, that we're there for each other, and we've had to talk a lot to each other. Which, you get busy. When we were first married and you're playing house and everything is wonderful, and you get, I was fairly newly saved when we got married, so a lot of questions, but then the kids come along and you're talking about paying your electric bill and whatever, and you get all those years of raising children that you kind of lose some of the communication between the two of you. And but thankfully, and I really, that's a God thing, that we've been able to really kind of connect better than we ever have. And one of the things is, we've stopped, at least for me, I've learned fairly recently to stop asking God why, because you're not going to get that answer. But rather than to ask God, okay, what do you have in this for me? Because you have the promise that God works all things for good. And when you lose a child, that's very hard to believe, but on faith, it's like, okay, God, what do you want to tell me about this? What, is it so that I can help somebody else? Is it so I grow spiritually? Whatever it is, I don't need to know why, because I'm never going to know why. But what is it that you have for me in this? And it's faith. I honestly don't know how someone that didn't have a strong faith would get through something like this. It typically tears marriages apart. It's highly unusual that we're together, and the other two couples that Chuck mentioned are also, they've been bonded and become stronger, but they have their faith.
Yeah.
And that's what they clung to, that threefold cord, that they've just been, with Jesus being in the middle and holding on to it. I do not know how anyone that does not have faith would be able to get through something like this.
Let's talk a little bit to that one that don't have faith. Let me tell you, I grew up in a church, and at some point I decided to leave the church. Church hurt. We can talk about that on 85 more podcasts. So I had the experience of church hurt. So I thought, when I left, because one thing that, like, grief choke you, and depression too, and it starts to tell you your own narrative. It starts to tell you, the church don't care, because if they cared, when I was crying yesterday, nobody called you, right? And so you begin to have in that sadness that go inside, that sometimes it causes toxic situations, and it can make people pull back from you because people see you, and it's like the song Erica Badu say when she say Bagley, like soon as people see you, they just kind of take off running. Because too, sometimes, you're not happy when you're going around, you telling people, the why me, and this is not fair, and it kind of puts you in that state that is only happening to you, when we know that it don't, but while you're there, you don't. So what I like to ask you all, how would you describe faith to the one that they grew up on it, but they no longer stand on that principle because life have happened. And we know when life happened, it's like, well, everybody say pray, everybody say it's gonna be okay. And especially in your case, like people, oh, it's gonna be okay, just give it time. Sometimes time don't exist anymore. You can't even keep up with it. You don't know where to even find a thing called time. And like you said, Chuck, with even trying to get out of bed. And I love to share that analogy with people when we talk about like success and how do you continue on. For me, I think that success can be and should be counted as I got up and took a shower today.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
a successful day for some people.
Exactly.
But when you don't have people that really count all of those small wins and say, oh, you need to hurry up. Oh, it ain't that bad, because sometimes we don't have that support like you all have within one another. We don't have that longevity of even having something that you even believe that's going to stay around for 41 years. And let's be real, talking about the millennials and the Gen X, nowadays we losing people before we even get started. And I know with you, Miss Susan, you all too well sound like you understand what that looks like to not just lose one child, but still lose other children in your womb. Because when you're a mother, regardless if they make it to full term or not. And so, and I tell people grief is just the loss of anything. It don't always have to end with the loss of death. Grief can be the loss of a job, the loss of my favorite pair of shoes, the loss of a house because everything got set on fire. And so, like, how do you even find faith when depression is so big and faith just seems like that mustard seed? How do you find that?
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, and I'm certainly not saying, if you're not a person of faith, everybody's listening. We have a dog that acts like what's one of our children, so she's with me right.
She wants to be on the podcast.
He wants the attention, so I got to go out. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, I think if we've been in the church any length of time, you probably had something that offended us or legit. I mean, I've grown so much in the last 4 to 6 years with all the political turmoil, all the stuff that I used to think I believed about certain things, and now I've changed. And it's because I've gotten to know people like yourself, people in the community, where people with boots on the ground, as well as the people who are in need as well. And the challenge with that is I've started to shut my mouth and start to listen. And so, and that's what I just said, and all the things I thought I believed about, you name, bring up a topic or a subject. And I saw, I mean, I would say our little church here is largely been very, very supportive of us in our personal journey and definitely in our ministry with Raise You Up, definitely been supportive of that. I said, I give them big high marks for that. Well, then some of the other bigger churches and organizations in the area, there was kind of like, well, whatever. But then they've stuck with us the whole time, and we're one of their featured ministries. And so, just dealing that with, I don't know if you want to say from a secular or a non-faith. However, the mind is the mind, and the brain is the brain. And what I've been finding is I've been on a lot with Instagram and finding individuals and or groups that are professionals, therapists or psychiatrists or counselors, whatever. And I've tapped into a lot of their information. And so one of the things from my past, I always blame myself, shame, guilt, and all those kind of things, and blame myself for everything. I mean, I joke. everything's my fault. From global warming to the pandemic, to everything's my fault. And I kind of wore that as a badge.
Oh,
Yeah, that kind of thing. I don't feel sorry for me because that was a mentality that I developed, and a thing is to kind of like, I just always had that thing in my head, and because of being so much that was a failure as a father, and always thinking God hates me, God hates me. Well, one of the things I've seen was that, okay, as I've worked with a mind model coach, which is different than mindset, but I've been with him off and on for 2 or 3 years. And, it's just some of the things that just the strategy is to like, just simplify things, get very specific, but just simplify things. When I talked about my rule of 3 back in the spring, that's how one of the ways I recovered from my mental stress. It's not a spiritual principle, but it's not. It's a very you can say it's a spiritual principle. I mean, body, soul, and spirit, Father, Son, and Spirit. I joke. I say, it's all over the place. Electron, proton, neutron, molary, and curly. I mean, it's everywhere. So yeah, you get that one. Yeah, got somebody that gets that one. So good. So the fact is, but our brains are our brains, whether we're a Christian or not, and they're going to work.
And whether you acknowledge God or not, we are created in the image of God.
We are wonderful beings. So what I've been learning is how, to take some of these symptoms, because I would beat myself up because I would say, okay, I've got depression. I must be an awful Christian. God must hate me, or I'm terrible. It's a sin. I would try. Everything had to come back to I did something wrong. And what I learned was many things are symptoms, maybe of a bad choice or maybe not. Because my son dying wasn't my fault. Getting sick 7 years ago, it wasn't. I didn't do anything wrong. I just didn't do things in proper technique, on the job, and so I wound up getting sick. I'm still fighting through that. But I'm being able to see the symptoms. Say, okay, I got to stop blaming myself first. That's the first stop for everything. And even things were just dumb choices, I still pay the consequences. But I also say, okay, I accept that. Like the word acceptance. That's kind of my word lately. But it is also that I'm in the moment too, right now. Right now, I'm in the moment. This is all we're focused on. And so whatever it is, whatever you're doing. So stop living in the past, stop living in the future. And that's hard for me, the past especially. So just those simple steps of just saying, okay, slowing life down for yourself and not beating yourself up anymore. And realizing there's symptoms, but just not letting those things overwhelm you. Say, okay, where am I right now? And so, yes, I've had some scriptures I've relied on. And the process, I'm also learning meditation. And you can do that in secular ways. You could do that in spiritual ways. You can do it. And I've only been just like 2 or 3 days at it. And I'm very much going to learn how that's actually going to change. Because the brain is neuroplastic. So it can change. That's what's so cool about it. Yeah. So, I'm sure you're very aware. So the health professional is like, well, you're not stuck where you are. And that's what's a blessing. It's like, it's going to be hard work. It's going to take time. But no matter who you are, faith or no faith, there is a lot of hope out there. Just knowing what we know, the science and the simplicity of things. So that's been working for me.
Yeah. And speaking to someone that has gone through church hurt, like yourself, and there are plenty of us out there. What I would say is, you have this whole deconstruction thing going on now, and to a large part, that can be really good because you're taking apart, you're finding out what's true, what's not true, and separating religion from God is, that can help so much when you realize, okay, this was all part of my religion, and this hurt came from people that might have been in my church, but it didn't come from God. And that is not what God wanted for me. That was not his intention for me. And so really grasping that, and even if it takes writing out, this is what was done to me, this is what I believe, and then taking the time to ask God what he believes, and reframing that, and building on a more sure foundation. So when I hear about someone going, they're deconstructing, it's like, okay, I just pray that they're doing it in a way that they're going to find that true faith. Yeah. They're going to find God and not the whole religious system. Spirit, we've all been hurt by church. Too. A church is made up of human beings, and we hurt each other. I mean, if you go to work and you work for a corporation, someone's going to hurt you, right? I mean, that's what happens when you bring a group of human beings together, So that's what I would say as far as. And
I'll just add to the church thing, because that's a horse I could beat for a long time, because I've been on both sides of that. I've been the strong religious, you got to do it this way, and so on. And so that's probably what helped or or it hindered my kids' growth as human beings. It caused a lot of things there. So the interesting thing, about all that being now on another side of it, I can say, I feel like even in this last week, I've probably been starting over again, deconstructing. And I have friends that are deconstructing that would still hold their faith, but just not the faith that they were raised with. And I have others that like totally left it altogether. And I don't see them any different in the sense that they're both on a journey. I mean, we're supposed to be seekers. When we stop seeking, we're stuck. We always need to be seeking, just continually seeking, and it's a journey. So it's okay to start over. So I choose not to be a part of what's going to damage somebody else's. And, I want to be a part in somebody else's. I don't know where I'm going to be in somebody else's journey. It might be very secular, if you want to put it that way, give them something encouraging word or just help. Back to that suicide thing. It's interesting that many times in my life, not like dozens, but quite a few times, I've come upon somebody or somebody reached out to me that was so depressed they felt like they wanted to kill themselves in that moment. I came up on one guy just tried it. I came up on one guy that was getting ready to try it. That was just to be like in the first year of the pandemic. That was such a God story, or whatever you want to call it, miracle story that he didn't do it, and it was amazing the timing of everything that there we were. And so there's somebody I get a private message from somebody in the middle of the night from someone I know a little bit on Facebook, but it was just why did she reach out to me? I don't know, but she just did. So there was something there. Call it the universe, or call it God, or call it fate. I don't care. At that point, it's like, look, we're all going through an experience, so we can learn, like she said, learn from that and be able to share that with others and bless others. So, yeah.
Yes, I totally agree, and I thank you for that. So I know I was watching Miss Susan on Facebook, and I seen that, and this goes right with the healing and mental wellness and mental illness as well. Being sleep deprived, because if so, say we master all these things, we writing down our three things that we do a day, we on it, but we all know that after the start of a day and we get to the end of the day, when it's that so real time when you hit that pillow, everything comes back, and it's almost like I had faith for 12 hours or 18 hours. I was doing it, I did my three things, but now I have to lay here inside myself. You can feel and hear what one might call God, but even in those voices, you can't sleep because you're wondering, how many times do I have to do this before it's going to get better? What do I have to do? I know with me, I never dealt with it, but sleep was an issue. It wasn't so much that I wasn't falling asleep. When I was getting to sleep, my mind and my body still was not resting. So it was the jerks in your sleep. It goes into, you don't want to be around anyone because you don't want anyone to see that part of your trauma, because you did do everything so well through the day, but now you have to go and be with yourself or your husband or your wife, and you have to face a tough moment. And so I seen you all talking something about you all were addressing the sleep deprived people or the issues, and I know I was curious to see it. I seen some little paper or something that Miss Susan was doing. So, and I think that's with your business. So if we can talk about that a little bit, because you all are not just moving in bodies and doing this amazing things and out in with the homeless people and addressing suicide. You all are actually doing other things too to address the body that needs to rest, because when we resting, that's the ultimate way to get to recovery. So a restless body is a body that's not recovering, even with the respect of prayer and doing these things that you said that you would do throughout the course of the day. So tell me a little bit about your business and as far as the mental wellness, and what is that paper script that we see online. I'm curious to know, and what kind of took you there when you were using it, Miss Susan, because that's one thing that I was like really attracted about, and I would get up and I would follow you and like kind of
Well,
watch,
thank you.
what you were doing, and you can even see in you and Chuck, like, because I think me and Chuck became friends on Facebook when he was pretty radical. But so I was like, yeah, I like him. Like he radical like me. Yeah, say that. Matter of fact, we could get together. We could just go blow up everybody. And so,
Yeah, he's a
shout out
mess. He can be my
really
friend.
the
Yeah,
Most High for us being like a work
that
in
must be why we
progress.
like each other.
Changes so change is real. And so, like I said, it's been an honor. And I thank you all for just sharing your journey openly. Because, like you said, Chuck, you never know who's watching and you never know
Yeah.
who needs to hear that one word, that one thing to kind of take your mind to life rather than to look at. I call suicide a fantasy with death. And one day I just was sitting in the kitchen and it wasn't anything bad. I didn't feel a dark space, but I was quiet in isolation, and I clearly heard the spirit say, "Suicide is a fantasy of death. You're fantasizing with this possibility,
Mhm.
but you really don't know what's there." And sometimes in our world of fantasy, we get closer and closer, and the desire just increase. And it's like, well, surely it has to be better over here than here. But the truth of the fact of the matter is, none of us knows what's after this life because we don't get that access to say, tap into the other side and say, hey, or get to walk over there and just come back. It's just not one of those deals. So when I look at suicide, I kind of have a unique mindset. I don't look at it as a judgmental mindset. I don't
Mhm.
encourage it, but I also don't look at it to say, oh, you're right or you're wrong, because for me, that's a touchy subject to say, who gets to say if I don't want to live anymore?
Yeah.
Who gets to say if I should live, right? Ultimately, I feel like that is between you and your creator. Now, we might don't agree with it because naturally we love one another. We don't want to depart once we receive the gift of coming here together. But I just don't believe that when people commit suicide, they go to hell. And I just don't believe all of that. I believe that it's just your next to whatever that next may be from here. So, how do we sleep through these? And like, what is it that your business do? Because, like I said, I can attest that sleep is very important when
Mhm.
it comes to healing, building, and living. Just totally, period. It's responsible for the function of our whole bodily systems, to be quite honest. So tell me a little bit about your business and what is the sleep, why do you focus on the sleep, and what are you all doing to sleep?
So I'll just preface that when you mentioned about the suit, I really, really appreciate your perspective on that. That there was a no judgment zone because that's what it's only until the last couple of weeks, a month. Some of the things I've been reading, healthcare professionals, mental health care. When people say, "Well, suicide or thoughts of suicide," and it is, it's just for attention or whatever. And there's a lot of well-meaning people, but you're making people feel guilty. And
Right.
the last thing someone who's really struggling with living and with being alive and being here, feeling it, is then to have the guilt because of the people they're going to hurt if they leave behind.
Right.
That's not a solution. That's a distraction. So, as
Right.
far as the sleep goes and what she's going to share, I mean, it's just her story is very powerful.
Yeah.
So,
I I have had a 15-year span of being an insomniac. Um,
Mm.
where on a good night, if the last time I looked at my clock, it was 2 in the morning, and then some point after that I fell asleep. On a bad night, it could be 5 in the morning, and I finally would drift off. And it wouldn't be that the two of us worked together and he would take my phone and go to the office, answer calls, hold it down for me until I could stagger out of bed, get a cup of coffee, have my protein shake, and hightail it to the office. But um, it was miserable. I mean, there was the depression that comes along with it. I didn't want to do anything. I had no energy to do anything. I'd be in bed at 8 o'clock at night, and just tossing and turning the whole night. So, and in those 15 years, I tried many, many different products, natural products. Nothing worked. I even got on a sedative, and while that helped me sleep technically, but I still didn't feel rested in the morning. And then I came to find out from a naturopathic doctor that sedatives, although they might knock you out, they don't allow your brain to go into a healthy dream cycle, where you're really getting some sleep. And that's why you still feel unrested. So I came upon this product. It was actually someone that Chuck knew from, just online. And I said, well, this was a fairly new company at the time. She said, well, you might want to try this product. And within 3 days, I was sleeping. And I felt like I almost was resurrected,
Oh,
that
wow.
I had getting my life back. I could get up in the morning and walk the dog. I could exercise. I could be social. I could, so that was tremendous. And then the product that went along with that called Brain just was something that really helped me get through the loss of our son, being able to work through all the mental fog that I was in. But there was such a transformation in me that I just felt this is a passion that I have to help other women. And as I dug into the research, it's like my particular niche is menopausal women over 40. That because according to the statistics, 70% of women over 40 are not getting the sleep that they need. And if you're not getting the sleep, one of the studies I read was that even one bad night's sleep will knock down your cognitive ability. Just one night's sleep, which means that your work productivity isn't the greatest. I got to the point where driving was not safe for me. I mean, I remember a couple of times I'd be at a stop sign and it's like crying because I couldn't remember, do I go straight? Do I turn right? Do I turn left? I had no, it wasn't safe for me to drive. That's how exhausted I was. So even though, science has not figured out why sleep is so important, what it is about the brain, they just know that it affects every aspect of your life, your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual well-being. So my heart is to make midlife the best life for women, because I feel like if other women are going through what I went through on any scale, I mean, 15 years is a long time, but even if it's just, 3 nights out of the week that you have a hard time sleeping, that affects you. It affects you socially, emotionally, your whole life, and you're not functioning like you could, like God created you to be. And so that, to me, that's a real passion to help women be the best that they can be in that phase of life. You've got all this wisdom. It's so ironic because you've got all this wisdom behind you. You've raised your kids, you've learned a lot from life, and then you get to a point with hormonal stuff and everything else where you feel like you're barely functioning, and you're not able to give that back to the world, and you kind of become isolated, and you go to the doctor and the doctor just tells you, oh, that you're just going through menopause, and get over it, basically.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that is why I have such a passion to really help women or men, whatever. It just so happens that it's women that mostly, and maybe it's because we're more emotional beings. Like you said, you take that with you to bed at night and your mind is going. And for me, it was cortisol. It was a simple hormonal thing that when I went to bed at night, my cortisol shot up at night, which is why my mind was racing. And so this product brought the cortisol down. It allowed me to sleep. And so
Basically, her brain was telling her it's time to be up. Before it was like it was reversed. So it wasn't physically, biologically, it was working right. It's just not the right time of the day because her brain was telling us. Yeah. So that's what we did. And again, we have to make the disclaimer that the products are natural and they're all, holistic. So there's not chemicals, it's not medicine, it's not a drug. So
just
it
working with your body.
It doesn't cure, diagnose, treat, or heal anything. So we have to make that disclaimer. But body, it's been scientifically proven enough that the different components of what our body needs supplement wise. And I'm only starting to learn how the brain's affected by nutrition. Yeah. And what we eat, how much water we eat. It's so many components of it. It's like, wow, this is a huge area. And and the offshoots, not getting enough sleep. Research I did for her was that women tend to start gaining more weight if they're not getting enough sleep. And of course, that affects you mentally. It's like, oh, I'm gaining. You try harder to get rid of that weight, and it's a nasty cycle because you can't. And really, sleep is one of the fundamental things to be able to help with that.
Right.
And the product that she's actually on has what's interesting about what we like about it, it's not just, there's two components of it. There's of course the sleep component, but there's also the the fat loss component of it, where it'll help you. There's part of in the process of it, they'll have you on a few days of taking one part where it'll help address the toxins in your body and help you detox. So which is going to help you sleep better. And naturally, it's a good cycle. We're trying to change that cycle with them. So.
Wow, that's good stuff. So, dang, Tom already then passed us.
Oh my God! Are you kidding?
But so I won't keep you guys much longer. But if we want, because you have a lot of information, a lot of resources, and access to the source. I always like to tell people that it's a difference between a resource and a source. Once we find the source, then the resources will become few for us to need, and we can pass it to the people that need it. So how would a person get to you all? Where could they find you to get more information about all of the support? And especially, like I said, with it being the holidays, I know that a lot of these topics that we're talking about, they're starting to rear up, and they're only going to increase because we just had Thanksgiving. We still got to get to December, and then hopefully come into a new year with so many new legislations, policies. It is a lot that's just going on, and people need help. And I know you all know that people need help, and the helpers also need help. We going around here and we helping people. And one thing that I will say out loud as an advocate and community leader, that it's not often that we even have these conversations and place ourselves in it too, and say, hey, yes, we've been doing this and we're doing great for the community, but who do we access for when it comes to each other? Because I'm not too proud to say, sometimes this work that we do, it is pressure, and it's a lot of triggers in it. So where would one go at to say, hey, can we even just call you anytime? Is there a particular time? How do one reach out and say, hey, I'm interested in your services or your support?
Okay. Well, we're both on Facebook. Mine is Susan Kewin. He's Chuck Kewin. And then Instagram, I'm Susan the Sleep Girl. And so you can just look up Susan Kewin. And he's Chuck the Laugh Guy. And I am offering a free sleep coaching call to anyone that would be interested in that. And they could just message me send me a friend request on Facebook, and then we can connect there, or on Instagram. Just let me know that they're interested in that, and we can set that up.
Okay. I would love for us to do something in person for the community, so we can still continue with this conversation and keep these, this support going, the conversation going, even past the holidays. I always laugh and joke at people. I say, and I said a couple times this week, I won't lie. I said, everybody gonna be nice just because it's Thanksgiving, and they're going to be extra nice on Christmas. But then come January, we giving December and November. Then January, we got, we have the yearly goals that we have, and it goes, a lot of the times I'm looking and hearing some people around me, well, my New Year's resolution is I'm staying to myself. It should, like, you was just hanging out with everybody last month. And now we in this, it's like, do we really want to say to ourselves, or have we just given so much of us within those last 2 months that we forgot to be honest with ourselves and say, hey, yeah, I'm enjoying you guys, but even after this, can we do this once a month? Can we, have Thanksgiving in January, February, do the rest of the year?
Yeah, exactly.
Because if we want to be honest, like, I love going around looking at, just or feeling the energy of the holidays. Like, you ride down the street, you see the beautiful lights, you see all of this stuff going on, and then boom, it stopped. Like in January, it's no more. It's back to just rush, forget everything that just happened, and we don't do that again until the following year. And I think that alone too can be traumatizing and triggering to some people as well, with them even, like you said, just questioning yourself, saying, what am I staying here for? It's taking too long to get back to that. So I would love to see what we can do in the near future as it relates to, creating even, some in-person stuff to see how that goes.
Oh, absolutely.
In the community. And UB also want to see you all having your podcast on so we can come in and check in. And one thing that I'm being intentional about this season is just making sure that I be consistent, because I don't like the camera. But however, these are we're gonna have to do some things that we don't like, that's not so conventional, for us to, save ourselves and also show other people how to do the same thing. And I'll add to the word with faith that although I left the church never left me. And so it's funny how you can leave anywhere, but once I tell people, first to get on you, then to get in you. And so I'm so grateful for the experience and for church being the start of what healing looks like. And I also understand that we can't heal what we don't feel. So if it was church hurt there, at least I can recognize it, I can feel it, and then that's the opportunity to begin to have a conversation. And I believe that healing starts in a conversation, which is why I put my own self aside and say, you know what, we have to continue with the podcast and find people like you in a community that can really look at all of these different areas that we need to heal. And I tell people this also, one big thing that I feel like that we don't have in this journey is each other. And once we can get each other back, then I believe that we can have a nation full of people that's just healing and building, and we're maintaining that, not just doing it and then somehow everything is still keep on collapsing. It's really our duty. Each one of us, is our duty to put, our truth out there and bring real solutions with real people and create these spaces right here tonight. So thank you all. Even though I'm like, dang, time because I still have no questions. But I thank you all for coming on here and just like really taking your time and giving us some really, really, really important information, and also for sharing the life of your son. What I believe to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. But also when you're present with the Lord, you can also go on the other side and do things for us that we can't get done here. So pray that he continue to rest in power and continue to lead us all on this journey with these conversations that need to be had. And thank you, Miss Susan, for just being they say behind every strong, funny man, there's a woman that get her rest. She's able to deal with that man.
There's a woman that's rolling her eyes all the time.
And so if you all have any closing remarks, you can say your closing remarks there if you feel like it.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this was such an honor. I mean, really, you did a fantastic job. We just want to bless you. And thank you so much for having us on this. This meant a whole lot to us. And like I said, it's been such a roller coaster ride. And to be asked to do this, it's really, really an honor. So I'm really grateful. And so, and just on the mental health aspect of things, one of the things is learning that rest. And not just learning the rest, but learning when to step back from things. So what I'm actually doing is I said about our nonprofit, Raise You Up at Home. I'm actually stepping back from that for 6 months after the first of the year. but not as far as participating on the street, because I need time to get healed physically and mentally, and I just realize it's still at a fragile stage. And so I'm going to be support behind the scenes and doing what we need to do to make sure that happens out there in the street. But as far as that, so I know I'm just testing this out, so I know. And we talk about being a community and helping each other, but I don't think people need to be not afraid to talk to a professional, because it's great that we've got friends to talk to, but sometimes our friends just don't need that heavy burden for somebody's feeling suicidal or very traumatic incident, and they don't. It's not that the person doesn't want to help them; they're not really equipped to help them. So I just encourage people not to be afraid of talking to a therapist, a counselor. Be very, very picky. Be very selective who you share your private struggles with. But I would highly recommend that to someone that you can trust. And it's so, as like I said to my friend recently, I'm not telling you why I'm stepping in, because it's to protect you, not to reject you. Because you don't need this added burden, because I love you, not because so I need to get myself done first. So I had to realize that. So it's a journey. So that's where we are.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Miss Susan, you have any closing remarks?
Oh, well, it's been an honor, and I really look forward to being on the streets together and working together. And and just thank you for this opportunity.
Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you guys for coming on the UB podcast. And Chuck, I commend you for taking that step back. We all need to go out, so you got to recharge that battery. So while you stepping back, I will still be peeking in on the side.
Oh, yeah, we're going to stay connected. Trust me. I'll be on social media. We got the business. No, we will not lose touch.
Yeah, and you gotta still come on and do our laughing jokes. I'm actually starting to get.
Don't worry.
I'm starting to get used to that. So you guys have a great night tonight. Again, thank you for coming on UB Podcast, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Thank you.
And enjoy your holiday. I don't know if you should eat a lot of that food or not a lot of the food, but enjoy what you can. And it's a rule, y'all. We doing Thanksgiving for only 3 days. We not having 5-day Thanksgivings. That's over. 3-day Thanksgiving. After that, everything get frozen until next year. All right.
I hear you. Right.
All right.
Okay. Y'all have a good night.
You too. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, you guys. Thank you all for tuning in with UB Podcast. Make sure if you have a story that you want to tell and you want to get on here and we want to talk, let me know. Make sure that you all tune in with us. I won't say every Sunday night, but I will say Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, I am your host of the Hour Unique. I am not Unique Blessings. Our nonprofit is Unique Blessings. I am Queen Unique, but our nonprofit is Unique Blessings. We are providing awareness and advocacy for human trafficking, domestic violence, and sexual assault. If you see something, say something. This is the holiday time, and we need all hands on deck. We need everybody out there in the streets making sure our babies are safe and our families are safe. So have a good night. Have an amazing Thanksgiving. We will not have podcasts the Sunday of Thanksgiving, so enjoy your family. And if you need us, inbox us. We are here, and we don't discriminate. So love you guys. Have a good night, and be safe. Peace.